Hi everyone! I have a very special guest with us today. Pretty much all of you know her, but if you don't know her, this is Tara. She's our resident astrologer and our lead writer here at Sage Goddess.
Hey everyone, good to see you again.
And we have her here today because you guys were asking a lot of astrology related questions, so we thought that it would be fun to have her. So thank you for being here today. Can you guys hear us? I see Karen says we see you.
That's good.
Can you hear us? Did you hear my whole introduction? It's always so awkward because of the
Okay, I think they can.
You guys can hear us.
I think they can hear us.
Hi everyone, it's so good to see you guys. Thank you for coming to our class content processing session. If you don't know what this is an additional Q&A session that we offer you guys in case you feel your questions didn't get answered during the class portions of the Q&A portions of class. So usually I come live to answer your questions. We have Karen here in the feed. So while Tara and I are focusing on the questions you submitted in the Facebook group last week, Karen is going to be answering your questions in the feed. So we try to make sure everyone is covered. We're going to be live for about half an hour today, and it's going to be a really great discussion. I'm really excited because it's very astrology based, and that's always a lot of fun. So let's just jump into it, shall we? So the first question is from Amanda S. And they said, "Hi, clairsentience has always been a strong gift of mine. I shield every morning before going out. Does the shielding diminish the gift at all? Like I'm returning people's energy back to them, but does it somehow stifle the clairsentience and make it less effective? Thanks." I absolutely love this question because my personal opinion is that shielding is never a bad thing. It's, in fact, I think that shows an evolved sense of your gift that you know to do that, because in class Athena was talking about how an unevolved clairsentient is constantly absorbing everything. They're constantly getting triggered. So your ability to shield that, I think, is actually really, really powerful, and I think it's going to help you use your gift more effectively because you're not going to be affected by all of that gunk that's not yours. The work of a clairsentient is to learn how to feel all the things without absorbing them as their own. So I don't think you shielding is diminishing your gift in any way. I actually commend you to know how to do that. So good for you. You have anything to add?
No, I agree. I mean, you could always go overboard, right? I mean, if you're like...
That's true.
But I think that it wouldn't be the external part that would really be the interference if on the inside you have walls built up around it. I think that's really what it's more about. But no, I totally agree.
Yeah, definitely. Maribel Garcia, clairsentience is a strong gift for me. I would love more information on working with my moon Scorpio X house. Thank you. So did you want to...
Yeah, I don't. With Maribel, we're not entirely sure about your full question. We know in class that Athena got into moon sign, but the worksheet was really focused on the house that your moon is in. And so in the worksheet, there's a pretty good little description for each moon by house placement. And so maybe the X means 10th house, but we weren't sure. So I think we need a little bit more information to be able to fully answer the question.
Yeah, so just to answer broadly is that in this particular month and class, we mainly focus on the worksheets in session 1, but they tend to come up throughout the rest of the month. But this month we were primarily focusing on the house your moon sign is in. We weren't really talking as much about the sign. Athena did mention it in class, but I mean that's because they work together. But our primary focus was on the house. That's why the worksheet didn't go too much into the signs.
Yeah. And someone is asking the difference between, is it Lena?
Yes.
Between clairsentience and claircognizance, and we've actually been talking about that a lot around here.
It's been a big subject.
Well, so technically clairsentience is through the feeling body and claircognizance is through the mental body, but there's a lot of overlap between this stuff. I would say the difference, like if I were just to talk about it, clairsentience, I'd say I just feel XYZ. Claircognizance, I would say I just know. It's like just like a sense of knowing that drops in.
It's more of a the way I think about it is clairsentience, we talked about, is being mainly the heart chakra, but also the solar plexus chakra too, because we can tend to hold and take in energy through the solar plexus chakra. So that's those two chakras. That's those two chakras are how. Okay. Clairsentience is associated with the heart chakra and the solar plexus chakra. I associate claircognizance with the third eye chakra.
Yeah. And for me, claircognizance is one of, well, I think that I have both, but claircognizance I have. And I had to say, when I have those moments, it's not that I'm feeling it. It's weird. It's almost just like a library opens up or something opens up and just gives me an answer. It just gives me information. Yeah.
And we'll be talking about it more throughout the year as well, so it's not the end of that conversation. Crystal Thompson, is there a way to find out based on your moon sign and house? Your moon is to decipher if you're in the right career. For example, my moon is in the second house and my moon sign is Taurus. So this is something that Athena kind of touched base on in class, and I think it may have gotten a little bit confused. So she did talk about careers, but she was mainly talking about what career you'll best use your clairsentient abilities in based off of your moon house sign. And then I'll let you take over.
Yeah, and so Athena and I are totally on the same page that the moon has a lot to do with what's in your heart and your soul, right? So, and that of course pours into what we do in the world. So it's not that it's not that you don't use the moon when you're thinking about career, but it's not the main thing or the only thing. So for example, if you were to come to an astrologer and say, hey, I want some guidance as far as like what might be the best career for me or best type of work, there would be lots of other places in the chart, including the midheaven, the cusp on the second house, everything in the 10th house, lots of different places to look at. So that's the one place there. Those of you who know a little bit more, the sign on the cusp or the doorway of the second house, like I just mentioned, that sign speaks to natural gifts and talents that you have. And in fact, one of my teachers used to say, whatever that energy is, you should spread it like manure over your whole life because it like makes everything grow.
Fertilizer.
But that, yeah, exactly, yeah. But anyhow, so that using that in a career, like that's one place you can look to get ideas of just things that you're naturally good at without having to go through like a big school program to learn it. You know, it's the natural things that arise. Yeah, so I hope that helps a little bit. But career, each of these things in the chart, you know, all the pieces interact together. So just the moon on its own is probably not going to be enough to give you the answer that you want. Yeah.
Stephanie Brown, I'm unable to attend live class due to my children. I've asked this question in a post and people seem interested in getting this answered. I appreciate the feedback. Session 1 question. I would love a deeper dive on running energy as mentioned in class, especially related to children on the spectrum and their behavioral outbursts. Specifically, how can I support my youngest child's solar plexus energy? She is fed solely via a G-tube, vomits daily, and will sometimes scream, refusing to do her feeding session. Thank you kindly from a single mother to 3 special needs children. I encourage and support any future classes on the topic of the CNS system and energy work. Well, first of all, I am just sending you so much love and strength. You seem like a really amazing mom for caring so deeply and looking into this. So sending you lots of love. And then, so did you? Well, I was like,
we're just going to be very honest here. And, you know, Athena might have something else to add, but at least I can speak for myself that I'm not medically trained. And so for me, even when it comes to talking about these things, I'm uncomfortable getting into that territory without having someone who knows more. So when it comes to the astrology world or other kinds of metaphysics, there are lots of practitioners who do both. For example, who maybe are a naturopath plus practicing astrology. So that kind of balance would be something that I think could be useful. But yeah, I don't know enough to get into it, and I certainly wouldn't want to make a recommendation or suggestion that somehow would cause harm or wouldn't be in the helpful direction. Yeah.
Agreed. Because you did mention solar plexus specifically, I would recommend crystals such as citrine is a really, really powerful solar plexus stone. Yellow jasper, yellow apatite, just really working with that energy center. Those are my 3 top choices for that.
And then astrologically, it would be very much the sign Leo, the planet or the star, the sun, right? Those would be energies you can use to invite more of that energy and just generally.
Mm-hmm. Okay. TJ Sykes, I need some help with putting my moon house element together so that it makes sense. It's weird because I seem to understand some of the others, but when it comes to mine, they put cue Jeopardy music.
Yeah, how's it go?
I am Leo / first house, which is fire. I also noticed that I have several planets in the 6th house, were planets covered in prior classes. Thank you, my lovely sisters. So actually, TJ Sykes, from what I'm seeing, well, first of all, when we were talking about the elements in your worksheet, we were specifically talking about your house placement, not the sign. But because yours is in Leo and the 1st house, that's actually all fire. In talking about that, because it's Leo and Aries energy, so that's actually all fire. And then Tara had some additional notes on that as well.
Yeah, and then, so the question of what we've covered in previous classes, over the years, and Alexys has been here longer, so for me, 5 years, we've gone into some of the planets, but usually in a particular angle that supports the rest of the teaching, so I can say that as far as just having a good, I guess, solid basics of everything. I don't have a place I could refer you back within our SG stuff to cover, like Mars in its entirety, right? Or Moon in its entirety. But there are definitely some of them that we've gone through, I guess, quite a bit of it.
I highly, 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 if you're really wanting to dive more into this rabbit hole and learning more, I highly recommend that you check out astro.com. It's a free resource where you can pull your chart, and it's super interactive, and it gives you a lot of information on every single placement. I really think that's a fantastic place to start. Tara also has a book called Astrology in Moonlight.
Astrology by Moonlight.
Astrology by Moonlight. I always get it wrong. I have to look at everything and I always get it wrong. She also has a really great book that you can check out. I think those are both really, really great resources. Aside from checking out past soul shift classes where we've gone into it, we can't go into every planet, every class, unfortunately, but we are constantly looking for ways to incorporate it into our curriculum and bringing you guys more information on each of them.
And I don't know if this is going to help or be more confusing, so if it's more confusing, just throw it out the window. But Alexys is right that there's a difference between looking at your moon by sign, by house, in kind of the traditional way. We really took a different angle of working with the element of the house that it's in. So I'm just going to say I can understand how those things might get a little bit confusing. In this case, for example, if you've got moon in Leo, we actually weren't working with Leo at all.
It was just
we were literally with working the fact that you have the moon in the 1st house, and the 1st house is always Aries house, which means it's always a fire house. No.
Okay, let's see, was that everything we wanted to cover with that? Yes. Okay, so Anna Marcella, about the worksheets for this month. So my moon is in my 1st house in Cancer. Again, we're only working with the house in this context, but the worksheet says that if it's in the 1st house, that it's Aries. That is not what my chart says. Please explain which is correct. Thank you. So according to your chart, your moon is in Cancer, but it's in the 1st house, and the 1st house rules Aries. So that's the association between the 1st house and Aries.
Yeah. And so if you guys go back to the worksheet and look at the little house element reference list, you'll see that the 1st house is Aries house, 2nd house is Taurus's house, 3rd house is Gemini's house, right? This is how the whole wheel works. So regardless of what sign you have on the cusp or the doorway of that house, regardless of what planets or things are in it, that house, the 1st house always, for example, is always Aries house. The 2nd house is always Taurus's house. So therefore, if you have any planets in the 1st house, they always have some Aries energy, even if they're not in the sign Aries. So I hope this helps. What I think will help you guys the most for this exercise is take the sign out of it. That's what's confusing this part of it. Yeah.
So Jan is saying my moon is in Leo in my 10th house. So in this particular work, we're talking about the 10th house.
Yep. And the 10th house is Capricorn's house, which is earth energy.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Brooke Armstrong, I'm struggling a little with trying to word this question in a clear way, so thank you in advance for bearing with me. I am a Taurus moon, and I like to do extra special ceremonies when we have a full or new moon in Taurus because it feels like my power moon. It is your power moon. Now that I know my moon's house placement is in the 9th house, does that mean that I could also call a Sagittarius moon my power moon? Is our house placement like a second moon sign placement? Could I consider myself to have a Taurus/Sagittarius moon? Thank you so much, Alexys and Karen, for all of your help and wisdom. And you didn't know that Tara was here, but I'm sure if they did, they would be thanking you too.
I was going to say, great. Karen's going to answer the question. No, this is my favorite question. Well, maybe I shouldn't say my favorite question, but I put this big note that said, such a great question. So, yes, there's definitely a synthesis between the sign that any planet is in and the house that it's in. So here's the thing. Signs and houses, they're not the same, but they're related. So, for example, the 9th house is Sagittarius's house. So the 9th house and Sagittarius, they're related. I say, if you feel connected to that 9th house, Sagittarius energy, where your moon is, then absolutely make that your power moon as well. That makes complete archetypal sense to me. Now, and I know some of you in the feed are saying, well, this is over my head. Yeah, because we're actually talking about astrology that's like more complicated than things that we've actually gone through. So I just want to acknowledge that right now, that astrology is like, it's a big field. And without kind of going through the steps from the beginning, it does get confusing. But I still want to try and give a little bit of information here. So signs versus houses. Signs, you can think of signs as being who you are, the internal part of you, what motivates you. And you can think of the houses as what you do and what's happening externally. And there's a lot of overlap between that. So for example, I have Moon and Leo in the 5th house, right? So internally, I have a lot of Leo stuff, creativity, and I do like to be seen and recognized, and I like to have fun, right? All those sort of Leo qualities. It's in the 5th house, which is also Leo's house. So I end up in lots of sort of creative activities and do a lot of Leo things. But you can see how there's a subtle difference between what's in and what's outside. Mm-hmm. I've heard it said before, you are your signs and you do your houses. So this is, again, beyond what we've talked about, but this may help you, those of you especially who know a little bit more. You can also think about houses as different classrooms of life. So all 12 houses together equal kind of all of our experiences here on this planet, here in our existence. And so it's dividing them into 12 different categories. It's where things are happening, what things are happening, the kinds of things we're encountering. So I hope that helps a little bit with that delineation. It was a great question because I can tell you already got it. You already got it before you asked the question. So it was fun to go in there.
I see Mermaid Crystal said the planet is the actor, the sign is the costume they wear, and the house is the stage they play on.
That is one way to look at it, but I don't see the sign as a costume. I see the sign as what motivates from the inside. Because whenever I think of a costume, I think of that as being something made up that's not me.
I see.
But overall, yes.
And then Lena said you are your sign and you do your houses.
Yeah.
Yes. And that goes in hand with what Athena said in session 1. She said your sign is the what. So your moon sign is the what you're feeling. And the house is how you're feeling it and how you're going to work with it. That's how she described it. And I think that goes hand in hand with what you're saying.
So whether you want to think of it also, the internal, external. But my point is that houses can feel a lot like signs because what's happening externally oftentimes is very blurry between what's on the inside. So I just want to say it can, for example, this person, Brooke, what was it? Your moon in Taurus in the 9th house, at the very simplistic way, does feel like a Taurus Sagittarius hybrid. Yeah.
And it's interesting because mine is my moon sign is my moon is in Pisces, but it's in the 4th house, which is Cancerian energy. So there's a lot of water stuff there for me too. Okay, let's see. That was Brooke. Jan E. Hoffmeister. Want to understand all the nodes too. So much to learn. And I see you here in the feed, Jan. Not to call you out, but I do. You're saying that it's over your head. take it slow. That's my best advice for you, and not just for you, but for everyone here that is struggling. I mean, including myself. I'm trying to take it slow too. I know, and I can very much be this way where if I get interested in something, I want to dive in and I want to know everything immediately. I'm very uncomfortable in the, well, like, I'm still learning. I don't like that. I don't like to be learning. I like to know. And like, that's just how I am. So I understand the wanting to just know everything, you know, but it's also really important to take it slow, especially if you are feeling overwhelmed, or especially if you're feeling like you're not like understanding. Take it slow. Like there, no one is pushing you. Probably the only one person pushing you is yourself, and I'm speaking from experience as well. We're not talking about the nodes right now, but we will be talking about them at the Reimagine retreat. So if you're going to the Reimagine retreat, we have a really fun session in store with you, or in store for you, that will include Tara and Athena, and it's going to be really, really great. But for now, I recommend, if you're having trouble understanding this, go back and review your worksheets. They're in the online classroom for May. Go back, and now that we're really pointing out to you, like, it's not your, take your sign out of it and just focus on the house and reread the worksheet, and I think it's going to help you quite a bit, and then you can move on to nodes later. Right?
Yeah, and I was trying to think of when I started properly studying astrology in 2010. I was dabbling before that, and it still puts me back to square one all the time. So I'm just going to say, if you're into astrology, you just be prepared to get pushed back to that beginner state. Yeah. I mean, it's just how it is. There's always more. Mm-hmm. We have a blog. I think if Karen hasn't already shared it, she will. We have a blog on astrology basics that has all the signs and the rising sun and moon sign and some basic stuff in there. That's a great place to go, and in your own time, kind of look and get a feel for some of those basic things. Because the thing is that if you don't even have a good feel for like the basic signs and the basic planets, and I keep going back to them. Yeah. Even at this point, I'm saying, but if you don't have that, everything builds on that, and so, you know, it's worth spending a lot of time, I would say, just with the basic wheel. I hope that helps. And lots of you are saying hi, and I say hi. It's really nice to have you all here. Yeah.
And you can do that on astro.com too. When you pull your chart, maybe like separate it out for you. Like maybe if you're looking into learning, today I'm going to learn about my sun sign. Today I'm going to learn about the house that my sun sign is in, and just kind of break it down for yourself. You don't need to know everything immediately. And I'm talking to myself as well. And I see someone saying same. Like a lot of you guys are relating to this. We just want to know. Stephanie said, I want to know it all right now. I don't want to wait. I'm the same way.
And then when something comes up in your life, like for example, for me, I'm going through a big transit to my moon. I go back and reread about the moon again, right? Yeah. And my own moon sign, because and you're always changing too, so even the information is going to feel different when you get it now versus when you get it 3 months down the road. So
Lena is saying, where does our rising sign fit into the inside outside thing? I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, you're talking about so that's not a planet. So we were just talking about planets and signs and houses. The angles, so the rising and the low heaven, the descendant and the midheaven, those are angles, and they work a little bit different. Those are all different parts of identity. So the rising is kind of the self-identity you project out in the world. It's also, as one of my teachers would say, it's like your own coming out party. If you're willing to let go of some of your patterns of your past, you come out more like your rising sign. But it works a little bit differently than planets, because it's at a fixed position differently. That's probably enough for now, but it's a little different.
And Jan said, the only thing I knew when I signed up was I was a Scorpio, November 12th. That's all I knew. I was a Scorpio. See? Look at how much you're already learning. Like, don't, and that's the other thing. Don't be hard on yourself either. Like, take it in as you can process it and understand it, and you'll look back one day, probably somewhat soon, and you'll realize how much more you've learned. That's what I did with crystals. I used to... I had the Book of Stones by Robert Simmons, and I used to just kind of study it. And one day I just sat and I was like, okay, I don't have anything in front of me. I'm just going to sit and write down all of the names of the stones that I know. And I was shocked for how many that I could just pull from my memory. And that's kind of how I work. Like, just take it in bits at a time. Okay. Erica Evans. Hi. I am Sag Moon in 3rd like Athena, but I'm a Libra sun, not a Leo, and I can't envision myself pursuing any kind of public/teaching life. I have had a history of social anxiety, and I have had a tendency to melt down or lose my English and want to run away when I have to talk to people. Not sure what this means for me with this placement, so I'm just like... She used that emoji. I don't know how best to leverage the placement to find a better career path, or how best to activate the energy when I tend to be more shy than anything. But I really need to figure out a better path, because this job I have, I am tired of freaking out and crying. Well, first of all, Erica, I'd like to say congratulations, and I'm proud of you for coming forward, even being shy and asking your question. Like, that's a really, really big step.
And I'm gonna I can't answer it fully without having your chart and having time with you to look at it, but I can just say that every Sag moon in the 3rd house is totally different, right? Because there's a whole bunch of other things in the chart that are interacting or influencing or alchemizing with that energy. And so, Athena, for example, has her sun up at the top of her chart, up in the placement of career, of being out there publicly. I'm guessing yours probably doesn't, and that's not a good bad thing. It's just a different thing. So we can't take just one little piece like that and expect it, to I guess, to feel like someone else. And even if two people had exactly, because people are born at the exact same time, right? Even if you're born the exact same time at the exact same place, it's still not the same, because your past lives are different. The background of your parents is different. The situation of your home, everything's going to be different. So there really is, I guess, no way to compare. Mm-hmm. I hope that's helpful. The other thing is, this kind of gets us back to the same point again, that the moon is not the main indicator of career, right? So I hope that we've helped you understand a little bit that it's a helpful thing to look at, and the way that Athena kind of went in deeper with kind of where your heart's at and where you can kind of really bring those clairsentient abilities into your career is there. But just if we weren't doing any of this class altogether and you came to me or Athena and said, hey, let's talk about career, we wouldn't be saying let's go straight to your moon. And I think that's what can be most helpful here.
Yeah. And then also to reiterate, she was really talking about where you can bring your how you'll best use your clairsentient abilities, or where they might come through the best for you. And Jennifer said she can do videos on YouTube or make classes on Skillshare or Udemy. It's easier to do videos if you have social anxiety. That's also a great that's a great recommendation as well. Like, if you have trouble speaking to people or public speaking, that could be a really great workaround. I also saw somebody said that your videos on your website are very helpful as well.
Oh yeah, and they're super simple, like just one on each planet, one on each sign. Joy is right. She said, go through and write out the different houses in order, what they mean, the signs in them. Honestly, you guys, writing stuff out and just getting used to what they are, I totally agree. It's super helpful. I do that all the time, even now, with myself.
Mm-hmm. And then Melissa said, thank you, Tara. You explain it perfectly. Our charts are complex.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's
as are we.
True. Okay, so Stephanie Kolb. Hello. I have a couple questions, hoping there's time to answer them. Clairsentience is a huge gift of mine. I scored yes on every question on the quiz. This gift is tied indirectly with feeling the emotions of others, empathy. Is that what this gift is about only, or can this gift be activated because you're picking up on the collective or major planetary activity? Do people with clairsentience have a tendency toward anxiety because they are constantly feeling so much? In the worksheet, it says some believe we go to the moon in between incarnations. I've never heard this before. Do specific traditions hold this belief? Any more insight on this thought? I narrowed it. Okay, and the rest was because I asked her to narrow her question.
Okay, so I've done my best with this one. Hopefully I get enough of this here. So if you just go to dictionary.com, clairsentience is the ability to perceive emotional or psychic energy that is imperceptible to the 5 standard senses. That's not limited to any place, any way of receiving, right? So that's the first thing I could say. I think there's not going to be a tighter definition around this. So absolutely it can include all those different collective or major planetary type things. Now, you brought up the things like during a full moon and Mercury retrograde. And so planetary activity, no matter what it is, whether it's globally or whether it's something impacting your own birth chart, it just reflects what's going on below. And it can definitely reflect times that we're more open to clairsentience. But I want to be just really clear here that the planets don't do anything, right? This really is the case, but they show us what's happening down here, which is why astrology is ultimately the as above, so below. It's more about looking at one versus the other to understand what's happening either place. So to talk about this, people that are clairsentient having more anxiety or feeling, absolutely, because anyone who's more sensitive or hypersensitive, I mean, emotional challenges are going to be part of it. But how it actually, I guess, plays out day to day has to do with how you respond to those feelings, right? How we respond to things is everything. And I think the very first question, also boundaries, right? It has to do with what boundaries you have around that, and then your state of emotional self-sufficiency and security. So yes, all those things are possible to either side. I would just say, if this is one of your main gifts, that probably mastering emotions is also one of your life lessons. They kind of come hand in hand.
Definitely.
And so again, my experience of something that is psychically or emotionally kind of feels like taking me over is going to be a very different experience if I kind of can't hold myself emotionally. Then it's going to take me over, versus if I am emotionally self-sufficient, I have a different experience of it.
And that's kind of where we went with the very, very first question today, was shielding is important, and learning how to manage and run your energy in that manner. That is the work of a clairsentient, is to learn how to not take everything on and to not be triggered by everything. And if you are triggered by something, learning how to process that yourself without projecting it onto other people. It's all a part of learning how to use your clairsentient abilities.
And just because a radio station is broadcasting doesn't mean you have to turn it on all the time. There's that element in there too. I wanted to mention this, going back to the moon in between incarnations, because that's something that I learned years ago, and I don't remember exactly the resource, but it's more of a metaphorical thing, because the moon represents the part in us that holds our emotional memories. And in evolutionary astrology, that holds the emotional memories through different lifetimes, and it's also our heart's home. So that's where that intention came from in using some of those words in the worksheet. But it gives you another feeling for that moon energy, right? It holds emotional memories, which is tricky business, because emotional memories aren't factual memories. It's all to do with how we feel about the experience. So, okay, I hope that helps a little bit.
Stephanie Hale said, is there a way to go deeper with these two gifts to teach us to build them and make them stronger, and the ways to use them? Hopefully that makes sense. Keep in mind that we still have another class this month, so there's still a whole other session where Athena is going to be talking about this. We're also going to be having quarterly gift reviews, so we actually just had one, I believe, last month over the first 4 gifts that we did, and so we are going to keep building on them, and we're going to keep coming back to each of the gifts and learning more, so more will be uncovered throughout the year as well.
And you guys, some of these gifts, even as much as we can go through them, part of them it's about discovering how they're going to work for you. Like there really is not, there's great resources. We love being part of that resource, but nothing replaces your own experience of being open to how it might show up for you. And sometimes astrology can be dangerous too, because you learn something a certain way. Oh, Cancer means this, and then then you don't leave room for it to spontaneously express how it does for you. So especially when we're dealing with things in the intuitive ability, it's not that black and white.
It's not black and white at all. And that brings us into Emily Butler's question, which is the last one that was submitted to us, is, hey Levies, I'm super busy this week, as most of us are. As we opened week 1 with the shadow side of this gift, I've been working on being more aware of myself and this gift and how I use it in real life. She's referencing what I was just talking about how being triggered by everything and taking on energy that's not your own is a shadow side of clairsentience. And we focused on that a lot because this is a very popular gift in this collective for sure, and it's also one that it can really take physical effects on you if you're not managing that, so that's why we focus so much on that. She said, I'd love to keep practicing my gifts of knowing, and I'm wondering if there's any ways or techniques you both use to build confidence in trusting your gifts in general, or practical ways to practice without the shadow side coming out. Also wondering if seeing things is part of this gift. So I mean, the easiest answer to your question, Emily, is this last part where you said also wondering if seeing things is part of this gift. No, that is, seeing things is a different gift called clairvoyance, which is the ability to see what's not physically there. So that is a separate gift that we will be talking about this year. To answer your broader questions about, one of the things you said, practical ways to practice without the shadow side coming out. I don't think there is a way. I don't think there's necessarily a way to practice this gift without the shadow side coming out. I think what you need to do is be conscious of the shadow side and know how to take care of that, such as what Amanda said earlier, asking about shielding and learning about how to manage your energy, how to not be triggered. That's all personal work that you have to do. I don't think there's not really a way of avoiding it. It's going to come through. And what you need to do is focus on learning how to manage that. And then practicing using your gifts. I think a big part of learning how to use your gifts is just having trust in yourself, that you're interpreting them correctly, that you're feeling the right thing, and just trust that, just trust in the universe, What do you have to say about it?
Well, the question, like, are there any ways or techniques that we use to build confidence? And I just want to, this is such a good question for me and for Alexys, because speaking of North Nodes for a second, we both have North Node in Sagittarius, which means both of us in this lifetime, it's about having confidence in our intuitive abilities, which is one of the reasons why we do this work here.
Yeah.
I totally agree with the trust part. I can tell you that even after all the years I've been seeing clients, I still regularly have moments before those sessions where I question that I don't know what I'm doing, or I won't get it right, or I won't connect the dots right, or I'll miss something important, and I do it anyway. That's the thing for me. For me, part of my practice is to not make it a problem when I don't trust. I do it anyway, and doing it anyway builds trust in myself, that even when that mind part of myself or whatever part is questioning, that I can still move forward and do it. And so I know that probably doesn't sound like a perfect solution, but it's made all the difference to me. Don't make it a problem when you do question yourself. Don't make that a problem. Love that part. Do it anyway when you know in your heart that it's what you're here to do, or what needs to happen in that moment.
I love that. Lena said it's the work of a lifetime. Absolutely. Yeah. And then Karen said slow down and pay attention. That's important too. Yeah. That's something that I am currently working on in my life, because I really do need to slow down and kind of get going. But yeah, that's important work too. And I think what the other thing I was going to say is that for clairsentience, at least for me, and learning how to use my abilities, it really is. And again, I think this is why Athena focused on this. I think this is why she focused so much on the shadow aspect of this particular gift, because that's how the gift comes through. Is I don't know. I don't want to speak for everyone, and let me know if you guys have a different experience, but I don't need to practice how to feel things, because it happens extremely naturally to me. And that's not to say I'm better at this gift. It's not to say my gift is stronger. I don't think that's the case, but it just happens. Like, I do feel everything. And I think the part of this gift that I have to practice and that I have to intentionally do is filtering out the feelings and knowing it. What it comes down to is knowing what to take action on, or what to really work with. Because I mean, if you're feeling everything all the time, you can't get involved with everything, and you shouldn't get involved with everything. And not everyone wants you to get involved, and that, I think that's an important part too, is learning when to get involved, when not to, when to say something, when not to. It's kind of like this little balancing act that you have to do, and I think that's where the practicing comes in. And in that case, setting boundaries, using discernment, which was what our gift was in January, and then also learning how to communicate too, without crossing people's boundaries. It just, like, if I was for some reason feeling like Tara was feeling off or something, instead of being like, hey, like, I'm picking up on some stuff, like, what's going on with you? I mean, and I'm very comfortable with you, so maybe one day,
she might say that to me.
But like, Really just being like, hey, like you can approach it differently. Like you can be like, hey Tara, like how's it going today? Like, you know, you can bring it up, and it's really just learning about how to finesse that.
And nothing replaces practice. Like you just, you know, part of it is, that's why it is like you just got to do it.
Yeah. Karen says there's a reason why discernment was the first gift we discussed.
Yes.
It's true. Karina said, I agree with you, Alexis. The feelings are there even if we don't want to tap in. The practice is in the discernment. They're both very connected. So I hope that was enough of an answer, Emily. I know that's a lot to sit and noodle on. She said, I don't know if I need to slow down and pay attention. I guess just using discernment.
Well, Emily, you mentioned you have North Node in Aquarius, so I'll just take that on for a second.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Part of North Node in Aquarius is about not worrying about how other people receive it and just kind of giving space to do it. There's a real level of objectivity with North Node in Aquarius, so I don't know how that plays for you, but the opposite, being the South Node in Leo, oftentimes is very worried about how things will be received, right? Or of having them look a certain way, or having people love them or like them, or those sorts of things. And North Node in Aquarius, it's able to kind of step outside and sort of look objectively and be like, okay, you know, let's just see what the thing is and do it without an attachment. So with North Node in Aquarius comes a freedom of just being authentic without worrying so much about, you know, all the other things around it.
Yeah. I'd also be interested in knowing what your moon house placement is, Emily. I don't know if you may have shared that in the feed already, but if you share that now, maybe we can help break that down a little bit farther, since that is how we chose to do it. But I think the North Node in Aquarius thing is too. I mean, and your astrology, like your whole chart, it does play into it. Like I feel everything because I have so much Pisces and fourth house energy in my chart that, like, of course I feel everything, you know. And like, does that mean I'm clairsentient, or does that mean that that's just like that's one of the questions too. And I do think so Emily's in the 11th house.
Oh, even more Aquarius energy.
Oh my goodness, how funny. So it is more Aquarius energy. So let's take a look at the worksheet, Emily, because I think diving into this with you is going to help other people see how they can dive further into it as well. So I'm just going to read what it says. The 11th house is the house of ideals, alliances, community, networking, long-term goals, causes, innovation, individuation, liberation from the past, progression, technology, and rewards for social contribution. With the moon here, you're extra sensitive to groups and their needs, otherworldly intelligence, and what needs to change. You can tune into the future and feel the presence of allies. Your clairsentient abilities are especially strong around vision, freedom, and the greater good. Moon in the 11th house whispers to the inner outlaw and maverick in others.
And I'm just going to say that connection to groups, whether or not you recognize this or not, Emily, right now your question is somehow feeding the group. So that's interesting. That's, and whether you meant it to or not, your personal question is literally tapping into the collective here. And we've spent more time on this now than any other one. So I feel like that's an example of that clairsentience in the 11th house. Yeah.
Being told that I had anxiety, deep depression, I was just shy, to stepping into a gift is a lot of work. I think, I see what you're saying, Emily. I think you just have to, you have the gift. There's nothing really to step into. I think it's more about learning how to use the gift that you already have. You don't have to step anywhere. You can stay exactly where you are, and just learning how to feel into that. Now, Aquarius energy, correct me if I'm,
we can do, South Node in Leo, that shy, one of the expressions of Leo, we tend to think of Leo more on the side of the one jumping on the stage, but that's not what all Leo energy is like. Lots of Leo energy is so afraid of being embarrassed or so afraid of being humiliated that they hide on the sidelines. So just know
that too.
So just know that can be part of that energy, but part of the medicine of Aquarius North Node and this 11th house energy is about being willing to let go of that attachment and just do it because it's authentic to you, which isn't having to force it or worry about it so much. I know I'm simplifying, but that's a big part of that energy.
Yeah, so again, I mean, that really does come back to having to let go of the thought that you have to step into it too.
And that's a very Leo thing. I have to step into something, or I have to step onto some sort of thing. It's like, Alexys is right. It's there's not even a thing. It's just you. All you have to do is just be you in the way that's authentic to you, and it naturally expresses itself. And then the right people to receive it, they show up. That's the beauty of that 11th house and that Aquarius energy, right? Yeah.
Karen said that to me too. Tons of that Leo energy. Yeah, same here. I just learned last week that I have more Leo energy than I even realized.
Yes, you do.
So it's definitely something to work on for sure. I hope that helped, Emily. We're happy to continue this conversation in the class feed as well. Please don't forget we have class on Friday, so it's not on Wednesday anymore. It had to get rescheduled due to baseball that happened a while ago. But we do have class on Friday. That's our crafting session. We are going to be crafting our little bottles, our sand bottles, and there's also a rabbit hole session at the end of that class, so you'll have more opportunities to ask Athena questions directly. For now, I hope we were able to kind of help you cover some of this stuff. I think we had a really good conversation today, so I feel good about it.
This is easy. Someone says, what if your North Node is retrograde? The nodes move retrograde. That's how they always move. So you can just take that off your list of that's just the direction they go.
just scratch that off. Yes, it did help, and I'm going to go over the worksheets with the house mentality.
Awesome.
Yes, I think that really is going to help. And if you guys have any questions, please post them in the Facebook group. Just because we did this live Q&A doesn't mean that we're not in there. Karen is in the groups all the time. I try to be in there often as well. Athena goes in there. I even see Tara in there sometimes. Like, we are there to help you with your questions. And again, we have rabbit hole on Friday, so you'll have more opportunities to ask questions of Athena as well. So this was really, really great. Thank you for bringing such thoughtful questions to this session. It really created a good conversation, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. Even if they weren't here, they'll be able to rewatch it. So this was really great, and I appreciate you guys for being here.
Me too. Love you guys.
I love you guys too. And I guess that's us saying goodbye.